Professor Volokh, for both the, statement you made about Brendan Carr's coercive tactics, and that wouldn't be appropriate, and for your recommendations on transparency and rules that I think would be a concept of just making sure that things were clear. And to my colleague's comment, Senator Klobuchar, one of the reasons I appreciate many things she said, but one of the reasons I support the Blackburn legislation and joined her as a co-sponsored on the Copied Act is because it gives the content holders some rights, and it shows who the content holders are, and even in the case of compensation, which is an important issue to keeping competition and perfect information. I will just note that during this debate, this committee and this body passed a public health emergency language related to deceptive practice language. It was unlawful to engage in deceptive practices related to the treatment, cure, prevention, mitigation, or diagnosis related to COVID. Why did we do that? Why did we give that extra power? Because there were a lot of crazy things online, like take bleach or what have you. And we wanted to make sure that we were protecting consumers against deceptive practices as it related to that. That was passed in a very, very big bipartisan support by by the Senate and became law. Okay, so now to this, Mr. Kimmel, this larger issue. Even my colleague from the House, who was chairman of the China Committee, I see doesn't like the TikTok decision because he doesn't think it goes far enough and banning, the actual algorithm. We have this attempt by Carr to kind of realign the deck chairs at this moment that we have competition shrinking. And so that's why it's so concerning to me. And the unevenness, we had a hearing here, Facebook whistleblower who literally said the company knew that it was elevating hate speech as a way to increase the revenue for advertisers. And I feel like that's, if a newspaper or a broadcaster puts false information in the paper, the community will respond, and that person will no longer be able to continue their business. But online, you don't even know that that's happening. And so making sure that we don't have, these challenges, what do we need to do to really get people to understand that that right now you could, in a very in a very vertical way, have such an alignment that influence that we're talking about now of not being coercive is actually done in major ways, even as my Republican colleague in the House is saying he's concerned about this as it relates to what TikTok might be doing.
Yeah. Well, Senator Cantwell, I think it's a critical issue because as the technology has changed, the entire media landscape has changed. So I think we have to update our understanding of where is the excess power being used, how is it being used. These examples you've heard today all relate to a gatekeeper in the media landscape that is a tech company. We haven't always thought of them as being part of the same ecosystem, and I think we need to do that. Because if you have such enormous power over the major ways in which the public gets news, information, can keep up about whether it's their community or if it matters of public health or national affairs, we've got to make sure that they're playing by some reasonable rules or that there's full competition in the marketplace to give people the checks and balances in the media. And that's
You don't think Professor Wallach's statement about transparency is a bad idea? It's a good idea.
No, it's a great idea. I think transparency is one element of this, but it's not enough to prevent the kinds of concerns about coercion and suppression if too few people have the megaphone, have the ability to turn on the microphone for the voices that need to be part of our public debate.
And are you worried about too much content being behind paywalls? Because I am. I'm worried that the more this vertical integration, and that's why, again, I was so concerned about Chairman Carr's comments, in addition to the free speech, that if you start using this power as the FCC chairman and you just allow for all of this vertical integration, and the next thing you know, it's kind of like on the sports issue, you put so much of it behind a paywall, how is the consumer just kind of constantly being shortchanged by this whole change in the landscape?
It's a huge problem, and that's why we need to make sure there's adequate ways for the companies that really invest in news and information and gathering the information that the public wants, engaging people in public debate, can finance that and present it so it's not all dumbed down and kind of diluted in an internet where there's just such massive information flow that you can't tell fact from fiction.
You're talking about localism now.
Absolutely,
Make sure that
it's localism, and it's preventing the few companies that seem to have amassed quite a bit of power already from getting any larger and acting as gatekeepers to our public debate.